Hi, everyone, and welcome at a new episode of When Life Happens, the podcast about mental growth. Today's guest is Shona Hirons, a former lawyer and today a mental stress coach. You can either give up or get up, and get up she did. Today she tells her narrative, her story. Thank you, Shona. So, welcome, Shona. Thank you that you want to participate in this podcast. And we're both working in the mental health sector. I think we have both in common. And I would love to talk with you about what drives you by doing your job.
Fine. Okay. Thanks, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm Shona. I've ran my own business now for just over 4 years. And for 20 years before that, I was working in the corporate world as a lawyer. And
that's totally different.
Just a bit, yeah. Although saying that, when you're practicing law and you have a new case, the first thing that you have to do is look at what caused the problem. So you're trying to work out what the causation is, and then you're looking to solve the problem from there. And in a way, that's what I do now. So if somebody comes to me with a problem, I want to try and find out, first of all, what the cause is, and then we look at trying to fix that problem over a series of weeks, months, however long it takes. So in a way, I am kind of transitioning those skills over to what I do. But I was thinking about this the other day. The bunch of flowers behind me. They're actually two bunches, and I put them in one vase. Last week I had two of my clients buy me a bunch of flowers. To have two bunches of flowers from satisfied clients in a week, I was just like bowled over with that, and it made me realize that when I worked in my corporate job, I had flowers bought for me by clients sometimes in my job. If I'd done a good job for them, we got a successful outcome in a case. And I always remember my line manager criticizing me and saying, you need to treat them professionally, don't act so empathetic with them. It's just another case. But it wasn't to me. And I remember I had one lady on the phone, and she was really, really struggling. Single mum, worked in the corporate world. She was struggling to juggle childcare and her job, and she had a really horrible line manager who was just making her life really difficult. And it reminded me of a situation I'd been in a few years earlier. And one day she came on the phone and she basically said if I didn't speak to her, she was going to go and throw herself under a bus. Wow. And my first thoughts were, well, how am I going to help? I'm not here now to give her legal advice. And I spent over an hour on the phone to her, literally just listening to her, and just sort of, giving her some reassurance, and just saying to her that, there would be something else after this. But just listening to her and her venting it and getting it out was all she really needed. And I got my company to listen to the call back after to make sure I'd done it okay and I hadn't messed up. And she sent in a bunch of flowers a couple of weeks later to say thank you. She'd listened to me. She went and got some help, and she was starting to, make her journey on her recovery. And I was like so proud of her for that. But my company that I worked for, all they could say was, oh, well, you've messed up the stats because you're supposed to only spend X amount of time on a call with someone, and you spent an hour on the call with her, and now that's messed up the stats for the week or for the month. And I just thought, wow, is that all you can think about? Is that what's important? I wasn't going to just say to this lady, oh, here's a phone number for a mental health association, go away. To me, it was important to listen and to find out, if she had any support. I wasn't advising her, but it was just being there for her.
Just being there for another human being who needed at that point in her life.
Yeah, and it was understanding her. I'd been in a similar place myself, and I think it was just being able to have that empathy, and hopefully she's okay now. But I guess that was that epiphany moment for me where I thought, why am I doing this job? I did enjoy part of my job for a while, but over the last 10 years, it became very, very stressful. I was working very long hours. I had a family at home.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was hardly ever here. I was always in the office, and I would work all the way through the day without taking any breaks, just to try and get all my work done. And I wasn't eating properly because I felt like there just wasn't time. And I'd find myself drinking coffee after coffee after coffee just to stay alert.
Yeah.
And then I'd just go and get a bar of chocolate from the vending machine, which wasn't healthy. So all the things, I'd always been really into my fitness and health, and that all kind of went. And I lost a lot of my friends as well, because come a weekend, if they wanted to catch up for a drink or a social event, I'd always cancel because I'd be too tired or I'd have a headache. And eventually they stop asking. So that wasn't the life that I'd imagined for myself, or for my kids, or for my husband, for me. But I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know what to do about it. And that was
what happened? How did you get out of it?
Well, first of all, if we go back to 2013, and I'd been working really long hours for a few months, and my mood was really bad. I came into work one day, and I made a mistake. I was knackered, really tired, and I sent an email to the wrong person. And there wasn't anything confidential attached to the email, but the company I worked for, it was a big corporate company, and they took what they call data protection really seriously. So I told my line manager, I said, look, I accidentally sent this email to a wrong person. And first of all, they were okay about it. And then the next day I got a letter when I came into the office saying, right, you're being suspended, you're being investigated for negligence. They reported me to my professional body, so there was a chance I could lose my career of nearly, at that point, 14 years. And I had to stay at home, not talk to anyone I worked with while they investigated it. And they decided, they got somebody external in to investigate it, and decided that, yes, I'd made a mistake, but there was no case to answer. But my line manager had the final decision, and he gave me a final written warning, and basically said to me, you need to remember that we're not human, we're robots. And I believed that for a long time. The pressure on me to not make any more mistakes ever again was really hard. And it kind of took me back to my childhood, when my parents, well, my dad in particular, was quite strict and had high expectations for me career-wise. And I remember just going for my driving test when I was 17. And as I was leaving the house, he said, just remember, no one in this family has ever failed their driving test before.
That's
first time.
pressure.
I know. And he said, so you can't fail. And I remember I passed my test, but I remember feeling relieved because I passed. But now I think about it, and I think actually it wouldn't have mattered if I hadn't passed, because it didn't make me a failure. I just learned from what I did wrong, and do it better on the next one. So when this happened then in the corporate world, it kind of brought all that pressure back, and I started having panic attacks. And the first time I had a panic attack, I thought I was dying. My heart rate was all over the place, my breathing was erratic, I was upset, just horrible. And I didn't know what it was, so I didn't tell anyone, and I just kind of dealt with it myself. But I knew there wasn't, there was something wrong. And then this carried on for a bit.
Really ashamed?
Yeah, I just felt stupid.
Why? Why did you?
Because I couldn't understand why it was happening at first, and I didn't know what it was. And yeah, I just thought so I did go to a doctor at one point because I didn't feel that you know, I didn't feel very well. And I tried explaining this to the doctor. The doctor simply just said, pull yourself together and get over it. So because that's what the doctor said, I felt, again, I just felt, well, I am being stupid. I need to pull myself together. I need to get over it.
So actually, everybody who had an authority figure above you, so your boss, your father, and now a doctor, is telling you, okay, you know what? Nothing's going on. Just act normal and go on with your life. Nothing's wrong.
Yeah. And that is what it was. And I did. And then it got to a point a couple of months later where I think when you're going through extreme stress, first of all, it's the psychological things that happen, but actually the physical effects that extreme stress has can be even worse. And one day my whole left side of my body just collapsed on me. My hands went into like a claw-like shape. I had no feeling in my left side. And I was rushed to hospital. And lots of tests were carried out and nothing came out in the tests. My blood tests were normal, my brain scan was normal, my heart was normal. And again, I was made to feel like it was all in my head. I didn't get out of bed for 3 weeks. And I'm normally a very fit person. My other thing as a hobby I do is I'm a personal trainer. So I'd always been really into my fitness, but I couldn't even get out of bed for 3 weeks. So I took time off work and then I started to recover and went back to work. And I just realized that the environment was toxic where I worked. And at this point, my self-esteem and my confidence was right down on the floor. You know, I felt
what point did you really realize that? Because you worked for so long there. There were so many times that people put you down. Now you ended up in the hospital, you came back, you started actually working again. And at some point you thought, this is actually the place that is poisoning my mind and my body. When did that happen?
Not for a while. It took a few months, but I think just coming home from work every night and being sick and worrying and not sleeping, crying, and I just knew I couldn't carry on like that, because it became like I call it a domino effect. It didn't just affect me, it affected my daughter, it affected my husband, it affected friends, people around me. And I just thought there must be something else I can do. But I felt like such a failure that I didn't think I could get another job equivalent. So I left, I just walked out, I couldn't do it anymore. And I resigned and I found a job closer to home, which had sort of more flexible hours. Took a huge pay cut, but actually it didn't matter. And over I'd say the next 6 months to a year, I started to find myself again. I started practicing mindfulness and meditation, which I'd never done before and didn't really understand it. So I started studying it, and then I started going to the gym again every day. And then one of the people who I knew at the gym, he was opening his own studio and mainly doing indoor cycling, so spin classes. And he said, look, why don't you train to be an instructor and you come and work here? And at the time I was 39 at the time, and I thought, who wants someone who's nearly 40 teaching them, you know, fitness and stuff? But I did it, and I still do it now, and I've been doing it for 8 years, and I love it. You know, that buzz you get, and that really helped to bring back my confidence, my self-esteem. Sat on that bike in the front of the studio, you know, with great music, seeing everyone, you know, bouncing and buzzing from a good class. And now I run the place. So it's what I do half of the time. And to me, that was something that I probably always should have done. I should have done something with sport and fitness. But when I went to university, again, my parents were very pushy in the fact that, you know, you need to study law or you need to study medicine. Anything else isn't going to be good enough. So I didn't really have choices. But I finally realized into my 40s that I did have a choice. It was my life. It wasn't my parents' life.
How did that affect the relationship with your parents when you found that out? and
Yeah,
step by step you changed, and in their eyes you changed. I presume they saw it,
yeah.
and they
So,
felt
well,
it. How did that change your relationship with them?
not good. So I get on okay with my mum, but my dad doesn't speak to me anymore. My dad has disowned me completely, because my dad was a lawyer when he was working. I've got a brother who's a lawyer, and I did go back into a big corporate job after sort of roll on a few more years, and I got headhunted for a big job back in the city near where I live. Um, and at first I thought, I'm not ready for this. I was quite enjoying the job I was doing, but at the same time it also didn't really challenge me that much. And I did like, I think as humans, I think we all thrive on a bit of stress, and I certainly do. But it's when that stress becomes a point where it just gets tipped over the edge and you're constantly worrying about, worst case scenarios. What if this happens? What if this doesn't happen? And that's where I was a lot of the time. But I got headhunted by this company, and if you'd asked me to do this job a few years earlier, it would have been my dream job. I would have loved to have had this job. And I thought about it, and first of all, I turned the job down because I thought, I can't do it. I'm not ready. And then they approached me again about 3 months later and said, we loved you at the interview. Will you reconsider and come and join our company? So I thought this time, well, I can talk to them. I was honest with them about what had happened in the previous job. I felt that was really important and I had nothing to lose. And I said, it's also important for me to work flexible hours. So they were fine, absolutely fine with that. And for the first 6 to 9 months, I really enjoyed it. The people were great. I won Employee of the Quarter award. Got awarded a big plaque and a magnum of champagne, and it was just nice. I finally started to realize that, do you know what? I am a good lawyer. I was good enough for what I did.
But going to be, I'm sorry for interrupting you, and I'm really cruel.
That's all right.
A really cruel question, but do you think you thought, okay, now I'm finally good at my job, or do you thought, okay, now I finally get the approval of my parents?
No, it wasn't about my parents because it was my decision. But it was a personal thing. I'd felt like a failure for a long time. I felt like I failed at everything. So actually getting that credit for a company that I'd always wanted to work for, that meant a lot. And I actually did really enjoy the job. But then 9 months into the job, and the way I would deal with getting into work, so it was 12 miles from my house to the office, and because I wanted to keep my fitness up and my nutrition up, I'd cycle to work every day and home, because they had showers in the office, and I did it from the day I started there. So I did it for the first 9 months and cycled in all weather. And then on the 21st of February 2017, I was cycling in one morning, and I'd looked outside and it looked dry outside. I didn't like cycling in the wet too much because I'd come off my bike a while earlier. And I hit a wet patch on the road, and I don't remember anything else. I came around about half an hour later in an ambulance with the lights on, taking me to hospital. And my first thought was, when I came around, was, oh, I've broken my hand, or I've broken my fingers, because my fingers were really sore. I hadn't seen my face. So it wasn't until I got to the hospital and I was undergoing tests, scans, I was in and out of consciousness, tubes everywhere. And my husband turned up, and the look on his face was just one of horror. And I asked if I could have a look at my face, because the consultant that was treating me came out, and he said, right, Mrs. Hirons, we've got good news and we've got bad news. He said, the good news is you haven't broken your fingers. And my first thought was, what? How can I have not broken my fingers? They're really painful. But he said, the bad news is you've broken all of the bones all around your orbital area. So all of the bones around here. I had a hole in my head above my eyebrow. I'd completely smashed my cheekbone into pieces. I'd broken my jaw, and I fractured the base of my skull. And then they said, we're going to have to put you in an induced coma for a few days while the pressure on your brain goes down. They did more tests when I was under, which they discovered I'd lost the sight in my left eye and I'd lost my hearing in my left ear. So I had so much surgery over the next year. I was in and out of hospital. I had major facial reconstructive surgery. I'm actually 93, really. But I had a free facelift on the NHS, so you see, you've got to put a bit of humor onto it.
You didn't
But
see
yes, well, this whole side of my face is all titanium and bolts and pins and plates.
So it's hard for you to travel then.
Yeah, I couldn't travel. Couldn't. Yeah. I mean, that was that I guess for me that was a big thing, because when the last year we've had this pandemic and we've all been a lot of us have been stuck inside, not being able to go out, and it's been a struggle. And when people ask me, oh, how have you coped with lockdown and the pandemic, I actually say, do you know what, okay, because 4 years ago when I had my accident, I was in and out of hospital for about 3 or 4 months. And then when I was at home, I couldn't leave the house. My injuries were so bad that I was stuck indoors. And even my daughter wasn't allowed to be with me much because I looked awful. I couldn't look after her properly. I had a drain sticking out my head. And she was only 8 at the time. And I realized very quickly that all of my hobbies related to something fitness related, even if it was either going for a walk or riding a bike, teaching classes. And I couldn't even go for a walk, and I really struggled with it. So I had to think outside the box and like, what was I going to do instead? And I taught myself to play the guitar on YouTube, and I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't had my accident. So over the last year, I've talked to lots of people and I've said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do or what to try, but maybe just have a go at something, because you might actually find you enjoy it. There's so many different types of hobbies. So, and I still play now, and my daughter learnt with me as well. So that's something that we do together, and just play songs, we write songs together and play them. They're not brilliant, but we love it, and that's the important thing. But I did return to work after about 8 months off. And whether I was ready to go back then, I don't really know. But I did. And when I went back, they hadn't made any reasonable adjustments. I said to my line manager while I was off that as part of the job, we had to wear a headset with a microphone on it to talk to our clients. And I did say that I didn't think I was going to be able to wear the headset, because where I'd had my surgery, they had to cut from ear to ear. And I won't go into the graphics, but I'd had 60 stitches and staples around my hairline. So I said, like, wearing a headset all day is going to be too much. So I need something else. And they hadn't sorted that out by the time I'd returned to work. And my line manager decided that because I'd had such serious injuries, that I'd have to have all my work checked, all my calls listened to. And because I'd been left deaf in my left ear, and we worked in an open plan office, I really struggled sometimes hearing what people were saying to me on the phone. So I'd have to ask them to repeat themselves. And my line manager had a real problem with that. She constantly said to me, why are you asking people to repeat themselves?
She was aware of the situation.
Yeah, oh yeah, she was aware of it, but for them, my recovery wasn't happening quickly enough. And as a result, I was diagnosed with depression as a result of the stress at work and the accident. And my line manager said, right, well, we're really concerned about this diagnosis of your mental health. So we're going to give you 3 options. You can either go on a performance improvement plan for a month, and if you're not better in a month, then we'll have to look at disciplinary action. Or you can go on an unpaid sabbatical until you're better, or you can leave. Well, this time I was stronger, and I just thought to myself, they can't do that. They're not allowed to do that by law. So I went to my doctor the next day, got signed off with stress, and started to find myself again, started working out, what is it that I want to do? What other career could I do apart from this? And I also started goal setting as well, because when I had my accident, my consultant said to me, there's certain things you're never going to be able to do again. And one of which was, we had a skiing trip booked for the following January. And he said, you need to cancel it because you can't fly because of the pressure on your brain. So I thought, okay. So we didn't fly. We got the Eurostar down to the south of France instead. So that was okay. And then I dealt with the altitude of going up the mountain by just coming off the ski lift at each level and waiting for the pressure to normalize. And it was a bit frustrating, but it was okay. And by the end of the first week, I was doing my first race, and I'd never even been skiing before. Wow. So achieving that for me was a big thing. And then after that, I thought, I need to do something else. I need to set myself another goal. And the big thing for me was not being able to get back on a bike. I had this barrier where I just could not get back, on the bike and go for a ride. So I thought, right, I need to do this for me. So I entered a half Ironman event, which involved a 1.2 mile swim, 56 miles on a bike, and then a half marathon. And I did it.
And you did it.
Yeah, I did it. And that was 18 months after the accident. And I can't say I enjoyed it. I can't say that it was pain-free, but that feeling when you come over the finishing line and you've achieved something which you've been told you'll never do again was brilliant. And I've done 2 this year. So, and each time I do it, I try and beat my time. And but I started realizing that if you dream big, if you set yourself compelling goals and you believe you can achieve them, you will achieve them. They have to be realistic, obviously, but that for me has been such a powerful thing and a massive thing, which has helped with my recovery and me finding out what it is that I love doing and what I want to do. And I decided that I was going to come out of my legal career. I wasn't going to do that anymore, much to the disappointment of my family, who didn't understand that at all. And my dad made it quite clear a couple of years ago that if I gave up my legal career, I was no longer welcome in the family. But do you know what? That was his decision, and that's his loss as well. It's sad, but I'm not going to change who I am for the benefit of someone else, because I absolutely love what I do now, and it's not all about having a 6-figure sum and the biggest house. For me, success is about being able to wake up every day and look forward to your day of work. When I have clients who come to me now and say, you've changed my life, I was at rock bottom and now I'm flying high and stuff, that is what success is to me. So yeah, I mean, life's pretty good. I had my first book published in February. I've got my second book coming out this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I also got diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago and came through that. But I think I was in such a good place mentally at this point that I was able to deal with it and not worry too much about it. I had surgery and I got better very quickly. So I was lucky. I look at myself as being very lucky now.
And where are you now in your life? What are the new challenges ahead?
Well, I mean, every day. So I take each day at a time. I really very much live in the moment. And, I do plan my week out to know that I'm available and when I'm not and what I'm doing. But I run my own gym now. I run that where I started 8 years ago. And so we do personal training and spin classes and I love it. So that's usually half of my day. And then the other half of the day, I say I wear 2 hats because I work with lots of corporate companies and senior executives, helping them to recover and avoid burnout, because I didn't see the warning signs until it was too late. And that recovery took years. It didn't just happen in a few months. Getting a diagnosis as well of extreme stress. It's really hard to get, you know, unless you see the right consultant. So being able to have those coping strategies in place is so important. And then the other side of my business is when I had my cancer 2 years ago, I had to have a total hysterectomy, and I went into menopause straight away. And I really struggled with the symptoms at first. I put on a lot of weight, I lost my libido, my mood went all over the place again, and I was getting hot flushes. And then I started doing some work with some of the leading menopause experts, and also with a lot of corporate companies. And I realized that there's more and more women who suffer with their menopause rather than enjoy it. It's just a natural transition in a woman's life.
And how can you enjoy it? Because a lot of things you're saying, that's what you hear.
Yeah. So knowing the right exercise to do, keeping yourself mentally and physically fit, knowing what foods to eat and not to eat without being on a diet, that's really important. You've got hormone replacement therapy, which actually is very safe for these days. There's hardly any risks involved with taking hormone replacement therapy, and talking about it, raising awareness. So if you think about the workplace, in the UK in particular, I don't know about the stats everywhere else, but I do believe this is quite global. The average age for a female chief executive is age 55. The average age for menopause is age 51. And in the UK in particular, we've only got 6%, the actual figure 6.3%, but 6% of women reach chief executive position in companies. And the way I look at that is, just as a woman is about to step up the ladder in her career and, you know, be that up there with the male chief executives, her body starts to betray her. You know, she starts, the amount of times that I've heard people say that they run for the bathroom to wait out a hot flush while everybody else is freezing, or, you know, they've avoided meetings because they've got too hot and they're worried that they might smell, or they've got sweaty armpits. The brain fog can be awful as well. So you forget things, you know, you can be halfway through a conversation and forget what you're talking about. And very quickly that can mess up your self-esteem, your confidence. So many women don't go for those promotions because they don't feel good enough again. And I wanted to get women talking about this, and let's get the procedures changed and policies changed in the workplace, because wherever you are in the world, you tend to have policies on disability and discrimination. You have policies on maternity leave and paternal leave, diversity and inclusion, but there's no policies on menopause, which can last for around 14 years and is just a normal, natural time in a woman's life. So actually, why shouldn't we talk about it? So that's kind of what I do as well. I help women to know what exercises to do to help them lose that stubborn belly fat. I help them with what to eat properly, and also just encourage women to start talking about it. And I just hope that more businesses start raising more awareness on it and taking it seriously, because at the moment they don't.
And do you think that will happen, or is there a long road ahead?
It's starting to. It's a bit like mental health. You know, if you go back even 10 years, wherever you are, mental health was hardly ever talked about, you know, in the workplace, whereas a lot more companies now are putting the well-being of their staff at the high priority, because they realize that if they've got a happy staff, they've got to have happy customers, and productivity tends to be better. But it's not an easy road, and it takes a long time, and there's still a lot of companies who need to learn all that. And it's the same with menopause as well. So these things that are really passionate to me, and they're both things that I've been through, so I get it. And it's probably not going to happen overnight, but I'm going to keep pushing until someone listens.
And if you now, to close the podcast we are recording right now, for the people who are listening or watching it, what is the thing you want to say to those people to inspire them and encourage them to live day by day and be more healthy in mind and body?
I think the biggest thing for me is just to understand that bad things sometimes happen. We're not robots, we are human, and you are allowed to make mistakes, but it's how you learn from those mistakes, and being able to letting go of your past and learning from those things is the most important thing for me, rather than just holding on to it and thinking that you're not good enough. I believe you've got a choice. You can either give up or you can get up. You know, if you're constantly going to be living in victim mode and thinking, oh, poor me, why me, then you're never going to get better. So, you know, it's okay to not be okay, and just work on it from there. You know, be the best version of yourself and be the energy that you want to attract. That's what I say. And one of the favorite quotes I saw recently was, it said, nothing is impossible. The word itself spells I'm possible. And I think if you hold on to that, and, you know, I mean, I start my day every day with positive affirmations, just to make you know, even if I'm in a good mood, which is most of the time. I love owning my morning. I start my day, I've got them here on my desk. I wrote these ones myself. These are a pack of 30 cards. I wrote these myself. And like this one, the top one on here, which I picked out this morning, it says, I am a warrior, not a worrier. So they're just simple little messages, and I keep that with me all day. And, you know, if anything maybe doesn't go right, I just read that back to myself, and things just always feel better.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I want to thank you so much for opening up and actually telling a really personal story, as well as, yeah, bringing out a beautiful message to everyone. And you inspired me, and I think you will inspire a lot of other people. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks.